Kia ora te iwi and welcome to The Chew, coming at you from Ka Muriwai here in Arrowtown, ko Arrowtown Dad tēnei. And this week we have back our political commentator for The Chew, Alexa Forbes. Kia ora, Alexa.
Kia ora.
So it's good to have you back again.
It's good to be back, and thank you very much.
That's all right. Now we are again we're doing a political focus in the lead up to the election again, and the subject of a lot of our chews at the moment are going to be sort of targeted on particular policy situations or legislative situations going on in New Zealand at the moment, like right now. And one of the ones that we have going on at the moment, pretty heated debates going on online about it, it's the Conservation Amendment Bill that's looking to be introduced by the national government. Yes.
Yeah, I think we've got some serious concerns about this. There's some things that definitely need modernising, but my major concern is that it says it's an amendment bill, but actually it's looking to change the purpose of the Conservation Act and do a whole pile of things which the title doesn't tell you much about. And I think it is good to clean up concession inefficiencies and things like that. We've seen commentary this week from Mark Quickfall from the Tourism Conservation Authority around how difficult it is to get their concessions in place and what an expensive, cumbersome process that is. And I think it's right to tidy that up and figure out how to do that. And that's great. Land swaps, which are proposed in the bill, they might be okay, but it's dangerous to think about land having different values to conservation or use of any sort. And
right.
Do you want me to explain that a little bit?
So
use an
let's start at the very beginning. This whole bill, is it? Yeah.
Yep.
This bill.
Conservation Amendment Bill.
Yeah, the Conservation Amendment Bill. It is specifically about legislating all of our conservation land, right?
Yes, it applies to all of it. The Conservation Amendment Bill amends the Conservation Act to streamline the management of land under this framework, better enable appropriate use of conservation land, and support more effective administration of conservation land.
So that's the blurb that they've attached.
This is the blurb that's right here. It's written in the Act.
Yeah.
And the problem comes when they start talking about, and I'll have to find it, about Department of Conservation's functions in terms of economic drivers.
But just to strip it all back again, so we're talking about the land that the government owns or is under government ownership, let's just call it that. But it's specifically the conservation land. Is there any land that government owns that is not conservation land as a simple...
Oh, yeah, there would be.
Yeah.
There'd be quite a lot. But so this is land that is administered by DOC.
Yeah. So who decides what's conservation land and what's not?
Well, I guess the Crown does. And it's there's a National Conservation Policy statement which is being changed as well. Yeah. Basically, they're going to use that to streamline processes to explicitly acknowledge that development is an acceptable activity on conservation land and to increase the likelihood of concessions which otherwise might not have been granted. And I think that's what the worry is. So let's look at conservation land because actually I'm not exactly sure what makes up conservation land. Right. I think it's everything that's administered by Department of Conservation.
Yeah, right. Makes sense.
And that's mostly what this is about. And I can't see anything here that says it's Lynn's land or anything else.
And for the average Kiwi, that's your typical, what do you call them?
National parks.
National parks, and things like other parks. I don't know. I guess there's other parks and other pieces of land that are not national parks.
Yeah, there's loads of them.
Yeah,
absolutely loads of them. When you walk around the country, I mean, the national parks probably aren't really that impacted by this, except for the concessions. But there's about 60% of our conservation land is, I think that was the amount, in things other than national parks.
Really?
So there's a lot of land
60%.
about the place. Well, if you walk around and if you go anywhere and you see something that says
that's got a DOC sign.
DOC sign on it. And, I mean, that's as simple as the land between the walkway and the river on the Kawerau reserve. Some of that's DOC
Yeah.
owned.
So there's all these little bits.
There's little bits of land everywhere.
Yeah, right.
And I don't know how they've all got there and how they've all been there, but,
Well,
but they are there.
they were taken off Māori. That's right. That's the simplest explanation.
Yeah, and that's no, it's another real concern. And it's I think the treaty provisions in here are really dangerous.
Well,
so
to my mind, so. Now that we understand what this thing called conservation land is, now we'll go to the next step. So the bill proposes that that 60% that is not national park land can be opened up for well, I call it exploitation, but it's for what? For
it says scale up to 60% of public conservation land becomes eligible for disposal, exchange, or development. And at the moment,
disposal means selling off.
It, yeah. Yeah. And the current threshold, land must have no or very low conservation value before sale is removed. So, but yeah, I think that those.
But then who determines?
Exactly.
Who determines whether it's got conservation value? The minister?
Yes, those things will happen. But the government disputes that framing. They say that they're fixing concession system inefficiencies, not enabling mass sell-offs, which may be what they're thinking at the moment. But any other government, if you can sell up to 60%, you might. That 60% of land no longer has the same protections it did.
So basically, their rebuttal or their comeback on the criticism was, trust me, bro.
Yeah.
Seriously?
Would you?
Hell no.
So it's things like, and it's dangerous to think about. I do sort of wonder about that, the conservation values. I think we get conservation values really wrong sometimes, and the really best example that I can think of that is wetlands. We used to see wetlands as wasteland, something to be drained and then to be developed either for agricultural reasons or for other sort of development. But now we know the massive importance of wetlands.
Yeah, right.
So that value, that conservation value is very different from what we knew and what we thought 50 years ago.
Yeah, of course. So, people who want to exploit or want to use that land can just come in and say, well, it's just swamp. It's got no use.
It's low value.
Yeah, it's low value because it's swamp. But who knows what endangered species nest there,
Well, it would have been mahi kakai.
Yeah, mahi kakai as well.
It absolutely would have been that. But there's been a mandate flip that I think in this act, which worries me. It's not an amendment, it's actual flip. DOC would be required to enable economic development to the greatest extent practicable. They don't just have to consider it, they have to enable it. Now, I would have thought that if you were serious about conservation, you would only enable economic development if it furthered the conservation attributes or outcomes.
So they are treating it as a completely separate thing to conservation completely.
I think so.
And they're just saying we need to give people the ability to make money on this land, and we don't care about what conservationists think about it.
That's right. And the Federated Mountain Clubs, who are great conservationists across the country, they say that this makes it impossible for DOC, or almost impossible for DOC, to decline a development proposal by law. So that's difficult. And I think that if this government wanted to get this amendment through and allow and to enable more economic development, they could frame it legally in the words that economic development must deliver greater conservation values than are currently in place. Now, we have an example of that right here in Queenstown with the district plan. I can't remember exactly the section, but it's easy enough to find, on Waifakata Lake Hayes. Yeah. The district plan means that nothing in the catchment can happen that doesn't improve the water quality of Lake Hayes. When you're starting to develop something in the catchment like Ladies Mile, you have to start really thinking about your stormwater and your rain gardens and things like that to make sure that the water going into the lake is going to improve it, not make it worse.
Yeah, but that assumes that this whole concept of conservation is at the forefront of all the decision making, right?
Yes.
What seems to me really obvious is this bill is the antithesis of that. It's saying, no, this is just land we want to use. The connection to conservation is severed now. This is about allowing our mates to make money off this land, because we all know that the people who are going to put whatever businesses on this land are just going to be people who lobbied the national government anyway, or the ACT government.
That is the most beautiful segue into Shane Jones's $63,000 trip to a mining conference in Canada, where he will be selling off our conservation land for mining. Well, he may not be. I might get sued for that. Sorry, but
I can't believe an ex-Māori land activist is this guy. Is this guy going over to drum up mining companies to come to New Zealand and rot it again?
He's been so bought, hasn't he?
And don't get me started on the whole how much money he spent on that trip, because as I understand it, he was so cabinet approved his trip under X amount of dollars. But no, Mr. Fat Guy decided that he wanted to fly business class instead.
And have a limo on standby for the entire time he was there.
Yes.
I know. And
it's obscene waste.
It's obscene.
And these are the people who tell us that we've got to tighten our belts. Well, they just
it's a real worry in that.
Yeah.
But back to this bill, there's a process concentration that worries me too. And what I mean by that, the bill, it's weakening the New Zealand Conservation Authority and the conservation boards that used to be the independent public interest checks. And it's putting that decision-making power in the hands of the minister. So the process has moved from being quite wide, going through independent public interest checks and balances that was provided by the Conservation Authority and conservation boards, to now just the minister being able to make decisions. So that's what we mean by process concentration. So that could be a real worry depending on who the minister is.
Yeah, of course. And again, Tama Potaka is telling us, trust me, bro. I'm not going to do that.
They haven't built trust.
Yeah, and
so we don't have trust.
Well, why would you trust
and the law's there so we don't have to have trust.
That's right, and nor should we. We should never have trust in a politician, because we see they're flip-flopping on all sorts of decisions.
Well, there's so many lobbyists driving the decision-making now, which we've seen across lots of things, but that's another discussion.
Yeah. So...
the Conservation Amendment Bill, basically there's...
Terrible idea.
Well, it's not a terrible idea. We need to fix the concession inefficiencies. It needs to do the amendment bit, not the change of purpose bit. It still needs to be conservation first, not economy first.
I understand.
And so let's clean up the concessions. Let's make that process simpler, easier. Let's make sure that DOC isn't making it harder than it needs to be for people. But let's also contain that. So tourism people are worried that DOC overreaches, makes it really hard for them. Fair comment.
I agree.
So how do we hold tourism to its to the conservation outcomes that the conservation bill has? Right. So you can run your tourism operation, but you must ensure that you are not degrading the environment. That's basically it. It's that simple.
Yeah.
You can run something, but you must not degrade the environment, which frankly we're not achieving that now.
Yeah.
And there's too many hoops and.
So do you think the fact, let's take away the economic sort of outcomes of what National are proposing. Mm-hmm. Do you think there was a benefit to a conservation amendment bill, just focusing on tidying other stuff up?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I do think that they need to tidy up the concessions. We need to understand how the DOC estate can be integrated more into our lives. Yeah. And tourism needs to be able to use parts of it. We all need to be. Yep. I think these things are worth even thinking about. Even this much bigger, there's a much bigger conversation that could be had.
Yeah.
And that conversation should be had, and that is about, is the Conservation Act serving the conservation estate well?
Yeah, that's right.
And let's have that discussion. Because we know so much more now than when it was written.
Yeah. And that's the key message for me. Like, this thing is called the Conservation Amendment Bill. Conservation should be at the forefront of all the decisions made within that amendment bill. This bill seems to be fully about economic development and nothing to do with conservation.
That's the concern. That's that's the main concern. The second concern is that the process concentration, that the process gets concentrated just into a minister's hands.
Yeah, so the decision making has been pulled away from, conservation specialists and is now in the hands of a minister.
That's right.
Do we really want our decision making for things like conservation in the hands of one minister?
No.
God, no.
No.
I mean, we've seen how some of them behave.
And how that's playing out. So, no, we're not willing to do that.
Yeah.
And we don't want that mandate flipped. Be honest. What's this really about? Yeah. And what it's really about is getting more money out of the conservation estate.
Yeah.
Turning it into a better investment.
Yeah, turning it into
You could actually invest in it. And I have a lot of thoughts on that, because DOC is so underfunded. We're not investing in the estate, but by investing in the conservation estate, we could actually produce a lot more tourism income. So we could actually make it have a much bigger return on the investment in the conservation estate if we actually invested in it, which we don't well enough. So there's a full discussion to be had, which this bill's not allowing.
Yeah. So what I don't understand is why the right wing has this infatuation with selling everything. Like, why don't we just lease it? If we're not going to use it, but some other people want to make money off it, can't we just lease it to them? At least it's still in our ownership and we get it back, and they still make their money.
That's kind of what DOC concessions do, isn't it? It's kind of like, well, it is really. If you're operating boats out of Milford Sound and buses into Milford Sound, what you're doing is you're paying for
currently what a concession is. Right.
Concession allows you to lease the land, the place, and it gives you that, and it's not a bad system. But it does need tidying up, because it's really hard to get those concessions in place. So I understand that part is needed to be done.
But a lease is quite different to a concession, though, right? I would imagine DOC has a lot of decision-making power over what happens. Yeah. But with a lease, it's like, you have the land, you use the land, you just pay us that land and you don't own it. Then you release all the shackles of of the red tape that DOC may be bringing to the table, but you still allow people to make money off the land. But it comes back at some point.
Yes, that's true, but you also have to hold people to the conservation values of that land.
Yeah, I mean,
so what's happened in just leased land is things where land gets degraded or damaged and doesn't have to be. You can't hold people to fixing it up. Mining's classic like that.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't think it would be that difficult to include something in a lease that involves, the state of that land when you give it back. But
possibly not. And I don't know enough about how the concessions actually work to see if that should be different. Yeah. But these discussions should happen, and they're not happening in this.
Yeah. And so finally, here's the thing. This is my take on this whole conservation sell-off bit. And I don't know, this may already be in some legislation somewhere. I would have thought iwi have first rights to buy.
They do, I think. Yeah. They do now.
Yeah.
So there's maybe some opportunity there, and iwi may have a very different view from what I have.
Yeah. So I hope that maybe iwi come to the table, and if someone has to develop it to do something, then why not let at least iwi do it, or some company within New Zealand to do it rather than a multinational based overseas.
There's a whole lot here about the post-settlement government entities, which is the iwi place. I'm not going to be able to comment on that. There's a whole section in the Act, though, that's worth looking at. Yeah. But I haven't looked at it. I have, actually, and I've written a submission on it. Yeah. And I'm not comfortable with the iwi bits, but I'm not a lawyer, so it's really hard for me to comment on that.
That's all right. We're just a couple of randoms having opinions about all of this political stuff. So, but one thing I really appreciate is you're likely to be more informed than certainly myself and a lot of the circles that I roll in, even though we are interested in this stuff. So we see it on the news, and I really appreciate the fact that you can break it down.
Yeah, I'm trying to. Yeah, it's always a little bit tricky because it's, I do read the acts. It's not that they're not terribly hard to read, but what is hard to know is what impacts they actually have. There is a regulatory impact statement that DOC have put out to say what the impacts are, but they're kind of a bit hard to read.
So who would put out that impact statement? Would it be the people writing the amendment?
Yeah, good question.
Because if it's them, they're not going to fess up about the actual impacts. It'll be some some other analysis that happens separate, right?
Yeah, it is.
Anyway, we're sort of
run to the end of time on that one.
Yeah, we've discussed that one. Not at length. I think we've really only just dipped our toe into this one, I think there's a potential to come back to it, depending on how things start to shape out. As we've seen with other bills or other proposals that have come out from the national government, not all of them have continued because of public pressure. So who knows? Something might change with regard to this one in the future. Hello, we interrupt this broadcast to bring you an update. So, I didn't get time to post the original video clip for talking about the changes to the Conservation Act, but what we've found since is that the Minister has come back saying that he's going to make some changes. So we're going to have a quick discussion about those changes, or lack of.
Thank you. As God is my witness, Jones says, public land will be still up for development. Shane Jones, our Minister, not of Conservation. This is in response to...
Yeah, he's not even the Conservation Minister.
No, he's not. The Conservation Minister, Tama Potaka, he has come out and said he's been shocked by the huge response to people to the government's the bill's decision to sell up to 60% of our conservation land, and he keeps referring to it as a borstal in Levin and a gravel pit somewhere else. Not true, by the way.
Borstal in Levin.
Yeah. So DOC does own some random pieces of land that possibly could be swapped, I'd say, rather than sold. Yeah. And anyway, so this is what's happened, and there's been just so many submissions. The whole thing's become very difficult for him. So he's called a halt on that piece of the bill, the sale of that land. Now, what the sale or disposal of those lands, and it's the possibility for sale or disposal. It's not meaning that it's all going up for sale tomorrow. But anyway, I'm not prepared to trust this, because I went in only half an hour ago to look at the Conservation Amendment Bill, and of course nothing's changed in it. He can't. It has to go to Select Committee. So there's nothing changed yet.
So even though he's come out on media and said that he's going to remove the provisions around the sale of land?
Well, yes. Well, he might do that in the Select Committee process, but it's certainly not something that's disappearing from the bill right now, which is what it felt like.
Yes.
It felt a lot of people around the country will have felt, oh, we've done our job, we can sit back and have our cup of tea now and just hang out for it all to go right.
Yeah.
And of course, it's not going to. So it's gone to Select Committee, and the submissions are being called for, and you still need to get them in. And the thing is, this is quite interesting. I think that Tama Potaka is absolutely no match for Minister Jones. And Minister Jones wants to open up conservation land for development, basically by hook or by crook, and with God as his witness. I didn't know he was so religious, but there we go. So his Potaka's mea culpa today, saying I got this wrong, it means nothing officially. The bill's unchanged. It won't be changed until it goes back to that. So
it has to go to Select Committee in its form, in its original form.
In the form that's been notified. Yes, absolutely. And so the only thing he's walked back on are potential land sale areas, and that's not even the biggest issue in that act. So probably if he was really serious about this, and if he was really willing to take Shane Jones on over this, he would have pulled the whole bill.
Yeah.
Just pull it. Start again. Haven't done the work. And this has been the case with a lot of these bills that National's bringing in, either under urgency or just rapidly before the election. They're just not well thought out. They're just not properly done.
They're trying to rush everything through.
And for people that are trying to look at these bills and analyse them and look at the impact on conservation and community, as I do, it's a lot of work, actually. We have to read these, we have to submit and do all this, and this is really important. And the thing is that this bill is changing the purpose of what DOC does.
Yeah, right.
It's putting economic return above the importance of conservation. And conservation was their job, but suddenly now their job is I'll get the best economic return and learn to develop. And so I just want to warn people, it's not the moment to sit back and say, job done. And you have to get your submissions in by next Thursday, so it's quite tight. But, just remember, Matua has got his beady eyes on all that conservation land, and he wants it to be making money. And he doesn't understand anything about its value.
So once again, we have the New Zealand Party tail wagging the National Party dog.
That's right.
Like, why is Tama Potaka is the national representative? He is the minister. Why is he bowing down to what Shane Jones has to say about economically developing conservation land?
Exactly.
Like New Zealand First doesn't have a mandate to do any of this.
And since when? Where is that in the coalition agreement? I mean, this is. I sometimes wonder if Tama Potaka, and sorry Tama, if you're listening to this, but have you actually read your bill?
Out of his depth.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
That's our update.
Yeah, that's our update. So. Yeah.
It remains, everything else is correct in what we talked about. Nothing's changed.
So just be aware that just because the minister's come on TV and said he's going to change the wording or something to remove the items about sale and disposal of land, well, the reality is that hasn't happened. The bill is still the same bill. It's still going to select committee. I guess the chances are when it gets to the select committee, you're allowed to then make some kind of changes. But what?
Only select committee will make them.
And once again, we're at this. Tama Potaka is expecting us to believe, oh, trust me, bro. Trust me, bro. We're doing it again, Tama. Cut it out. Like, either make the changes you're gonna make, or don't announce anything. So yeah. Okay, that's our update.
That's it.
We will wait for submissions close next week, did you say?
Yeah, July 2.
Yeah.
That's next Thursday.
And how long after that would it go to select committee?
There's a whole process there. There'll be hearings and things like that. I've put myself down to be heard.
Ah, right. So, that's where people can put their name down to speak. Right, right.
And I reckon there's so many submissions once again. We'll have it, and like the earlier ones this year, that we'll have situations where all of us who want to be heard won't be able to. They'll probably pull a few names out of the hat. Whether or not they read our submissions, I don't know.
Yeah.
Hopefully we've all written our submissions so that AI can analyse them easily, because that's probably what happens now. But anyway, on it goes.
Oh, great. Oh, well, so that's our update for this particular topic. So now we will return you to the original broadcast. Thank you for your time. So on balance, Conservation Amendment Bill is probably a good idea, but the current version of it, with the focus on economic outcomes, is a bad idea.
Yeah, putting economic over conservation is a bad idea.
Yeah.
60% of conservation land is eligible for disposal or exchange or development. That's a lot of land. So you've got to kind of think about that. The process concentration into the hands of the minister. Those are my three big issues. I've written a full submission on this. Subs have to be in, I think, by the 2nd of July.
Yep.
But I'm going to post that up on my Facebook page so people can have a look. And I suggest people do have a look.
Cool. Well, if there's a link we can share, we will put it in this YouTube video. So any final thoughts before we sign off?
I think it's worthwhile letting the government know what you think about this if you do think about this through the submission process. But that's probably about it. I'm not very keen.
Yeah. Neither am I. I don't even know why, but I knew I was outraged about it when I just saw a few clips on TV, which hence, this is why I wanted to bring you in so that we could have a little bit of a more informed discussion about it.
Because it's not all bad.
Yeah.
But some of it is.
Yeah, great. Well, that's us again. And so if you enjoyed that, just put us a like down the bottom there, down there somewhere. Click on the thumbs up to give us a like. Remember to subscribe to the channel. Don't have a lot of subscribers. I have far more viewers than subscribers, so please subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time on The Tū Mā Te Wā.